Well, kia ora, folks. My name is Rohan Wakefield, and this is our March info session, a session where we talk about the ins and outs of Dev Academy and what it's like to study with us, and an opportunity for our guests to ask questions, see if it's the right place for them, and generally find out everything you can about Dev Academy as we go through. We'll start off by introducing ourselves. My name is Rohan. I'm actually one of the founders here. My main job really is to make sure that prospective students are in the right place and they feel good about studying with us. But also, I've got a real interest in where folks end up. So, where people are working, how they're supported into that, are they getting the jobs that they want? Are employers really happy with what we're doing? That sort of thing, because we don't exist just as an educator, we exist as someone that really supplies some of the best talent into the tech sector. And I also have the title of CEO, but to be honest, I actually share that role with a lot of other folks at Dev Academy. Yeah, I'll pass on to David. Do you want to have a quick intro of yourself, David?
Yeah, sure. Yo, everyone. My name is David. I'm one of the online tech facilitators. So if you're joining the online course, you'll will most likely be seeing my face. I've been a facilitator for a few years now and really enjoy the job. I was a past student myself and moved into the facilitator position after that. And it's been great to take students through, see your learning journeys going from maybe not knowing so much about code to knowing enough to jump out into industry at the end of it and really get to enjoy what you guys build along the way, working along those problems with you. That's what fulfills me in this job. So I would pass over to Fleur if you would like to introduce yourself as well, Fleur.
Sure. Hi, I'm Fleur. I work in the marketing department at Dev. So the reminder emails and the website and all that sort of good stuff in terms of how you found us is the stuff that I'm working on. And I'll pass on to Jeremy, who's our grad, just to say a quick hi.
Hello. Yeah, my name's Jeremy. I was a Dev Academy student end of last year. My cohort was from uh, July to October. And straight after that, I ended up getting a role at TradeMe, where it was a fixed term summer thing, which is wrapping up soon. But yeah, I'm really keen to give back to Dev because I had a really good time and learned heaps. So I'm sure I'll have some questions to answer soon.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, folks. Well, we'll go on into it. As I said before, if anyone has got questions or wants me to clarify anything, feel free to chuck that in the chat. I'll be checking that fairly regularly. Or you can just unmute yourself and yeah, and speak up, and we'll address those questions as we go. But first, let's talk about Dev Academy and why we started and how we roll. So we started in 2013. Myself and my co-founder were working in a place called Inspiral, which was a network of people and businesses that really wanted to make a positive impact in the world. Most of those businesses were tech businesses, and we were working with devs and hiring and training, well, not training, but hiring devs and working with people and upskilling them as you go, as you do in a business. And we talked to a lot of our colleagues in tech, and there was this real difficulty in finding good people. And we started to talk to bigger and bigger organizations. And in the end, we managed to talk to a big company like Xero, and their founder said, "Hey, we have a real talent problem. Please talk to our staff. We'd love to see that solved. If you're going to go out and solve it, go for it." And we ended up talking to about 40 employers, and we asked a simple question: what makes a good software developer a great one? And it all came down to people skills, these soft skills. And that hasn't changed. That has really stayed the same, even now, even more so now with the rising capabilities of AI. The human side of it is more and more important. And this brings me back to our motto, which is a better, kinder, and more diverse tech industry. And the pillars in which our school is built on are aroha, pono, and tika, which is kindness, integrity, and effort. And if you come to our school and study with us, those pillars you get to define for your cohort and you work around. Since we've back in 2013, we've now graduated, getting up to 2,000 software developers in the sector. We're really proud of that. We've got an army of wonderful, amazing developers that are all over the world working in many, many different companies. And I must admit that is one of the most exciting things of my job is really finding out where people go and what they do. We're also seeing a huge number of our grads starting their own businesses and hiring Dev Academy grads to help them out to do that, which is incredibly exciting. We go to the next slide, Fleur. So a little bit about Dev Academy and what makes us a bit different. We're a short program. It's a 17-week program. And David is going to take you through the actual stages of that later on. But it's at a level 6. So it's a short course at a high level. Level 6 is not degree level, as in it's not your final year, but level 5 and 6 is your first and second year of university. So level 6 is a pretty high level. And we also have a part-time program now that is 46 weeks. Now we say part-time, and we're going to talk to you about the time commitments there. Our part-time is different from university part-time. Our part-time is a bit more like full-time, whereas our 17-week is really, really intense. That's why we call it a boot camp. Our completion rates are very, very high at 97%. That's for 23 and 24. They're similar as well. That doesn't mean we have a low bar. It does mean that we shroud you in a ton of support. So our teachers aren't like, I suppose, the teachers you may have experienced in other environments like university or polytechs, where you'd see them maybe once or twice a week. Our teachers are with you constantly, and not in an annoying way, as you would in a dev role. You know, you'd have a technical lead or a principal or a mentor. They're with you all the time. And our teachers are constantly there, not to monitor, but to really support and act as though they would in a mentor capacity. So you will move fast and very, very fast. That's why we can accomplish so much in that short period of time. And if you're looking at teachers, like we have one teacher per 6 to 10 students. So you're going to be able to see a teacher all the time. And it's kind of this, even online, it's this sort of noisy hustle bustle beehive type feeling of everyone's working together, and you've got this mentor and this teacher around who's constantly unblocking and talking to you about ways of doing things. It's a really fun experience. It also feels very real. It's a cool thing. And again, we don't have one teacher to 300 or 400 students. It's small ratios so that you're getting a lot of time with teachers, and we can move you fast. The tech skills are definitely important. Of course, we need to be able to teach you how to be a software developer and how to be able to code so that you can open those doors into tech. But the most important side of our program and of what we need to do to make you a great software developer is that human side. And we really take that to heart. And we geek out on what makes a high performance team and what creates an exceptionally skilled software developer that can collaborate and be self-aware and really provide value fast. And I'm sure Jeremy will talk a little bit about that, and certainly David will as well. Employers do love Dev Academy grads. Again, they can rely on us to hold a pretty high bar. We also, majority of folks coming through Dev Academy have a career behind them already. And the other ones that maybe don't have that career, they know what they're getting themselves into, and they're really up for that challenge and challenging themselves and being sort of, I suppose, mature about that, but also self-managing. And that creates a leadership quality. And employers love that about Dev Academy grads, that they are true leaders and they have got fantastic leadership skills. And often we actually get comments saying that, hey, the folks coming out of Dev Academy, they're going to be leading our organizations in 5 to 10 years' time. We regard our environment to be safe and supportive for all. What that means is that it's not just about coming and accepting those that are around you. That's a very, very important part of it. It's about coming and not conforming as well. And so we don't want you to conform to fit our image or to fit the person's next to you image. We want you to come and bring yourself and realize that everyone else will do that same thing, bring themselves. And that creates a sense of individuality, but also a sense of trust and connectedness to those that are around you, and a really supportive environment for difference and differing opinions and different ways of learning and working. What it also means is that we will customize the learning as much as we can to you and what you need. And I really love this about our teachers. They really bend over backwards to understand what you need and how you need the material to be conveyed and supported and so on, so that you can get the most out of the experience. And there's a lovely quote there from Caden. Throughout the 3 years of my bachelor's, I felt like I remained the same person, whereas at the 3 months at Dev Academy, it transformed me. And that, again, that's the thing that gives me goosebumps, is the fact that we are creating a really fun but transformative experience. And yeah, a lot of folks come back to me and our team and say, hey, this really has transformed the way I approach life and the way I approach and do things. Anyway, let's do the fun bit, which is talking to Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, hey, thank you so much again for being willing to tell a bit about your story and talk a bit about where you're at. And I'll just bowl on in if that's okay. So Jeremy, you were last year, you were studying with us. Obviously, there was a bit of a prequel to that study. What informed your decision? What was going through your mind before you came to Dev Academy, and what informed that decision to come?
Before I did have a bit of a career. Before I chose to come to Dev Academy, I was an analyst. I'd had a pretty nice career as a kind of insights analyst, and I had a little bit of exposure to coding, but not much. But I ended up working at a software company, and I could see the devs over on the other side of the room. I could see what they were doing, and I was really jealous. I was really jealous of all the problem solving they were doing. And sort of early last year, the company, like a lot of software companies at the time, ran into some trouble, and I took a redundancy payout and thought, okay, now what am I going to do? And I thought this will be a really good opportunity to change it up and go and do something that I really am excited about doing, rather than something I was ticking along. So I spent a bit of time thinking about how I might retrain, whether I could teach myself. And there are a few sort of similar boot camps on offer around the country, and I was very close to signing up to one up in Auckland. But I asked a few of my friends who are developers at places like Xero about the one I was going to, and this other one, Dev Academy, that I hadn't heard much about. And they raved about it, basically. They said, oh yeah, we got heaps of grads from there have joined up. I've been hired up here at Xero, and then another person at the company I was at was a Dev Academy grad. And that really gave me confidence that it was like a practical thing to do. I was very like, I'm doing this so I can get a job as a software dev as soon as possible. And I don't have time to go and do uni again. So that whole grads, companies love Dev Academy grads thing is true, and that was one of the main reasons for me. I'll try not to ramble too much, Rowan. That's a long enough answer, I think.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Thanks, Jeremy. And tell me about what you're working on. What have you been doing at TradeMe?
Yeah, I was really lucky to pick up this TradeMe Summer of Tech role almost immediately after Dev Academy. My role title is Front-End Developer Intern. So I work on stuff you can see on the TradeMe website. There's a whole range of content that TradeMe has that's kind of behind the sort of marketplace and the properties. Things like blog posts and guides and content that's designed to drive traffic from sort of organic web searches. And my role was to kind of add features and fix bugs on that front end stuff, but also to build out templates which let the sort of marketing team, non-technical people, put content into the website and have it display, well, and make it fit for mobile and all that cool stuff. So there's a bunch of cool features that are on TradeMe now, which I deployed, which I'm really proud of. Yeah.
Awesome. I think that's actually a feature of TradeMe, isn't it? They make sure that new folks get to go live with something, right?
Yeah, my first week I changed the color of a header on one of the pages. Like, whew. It got more complicated after that, but it was pretty exciting.
I thought I noticed a change. That was you.
Oh,
yeah. And how are you applying the skills that you learned at Dev Academy in your role?
What I was a bit nervous about when I kind of accepted the role, even applied for the role, was that the technology stack, so the software and the coding language that TradeMe uses, was different to the one that I'd learned at Dev Academy. Dev Academy learned, it's probably still the same, we learned mostly React stuff, which is a front-end framework. And TradeMe uses Angular, which is a different front-end framework. Totally different as far as I knew. But what I did learn at Dev Academy was how to learn stuff. And a lot of the big picture concepts about how websites work and how front-end frameworks work was really easy to cross over. And I found it super easy to learn Angular, a brand new technology, just because of all the how to learn skills, I guess, that I learned at Dev.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Jeremy, about learning how to learn and that different tech. By far, the majority of our grads go into an environment that is different from our stack. But even those ones that mirror exactly our stack still say that, look, you just have to learn so much. And being able to learn and cross the divide of those sort of technology streams is incredibly important. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm glad you brought that up. Thinking back over your experience, obviously, you had a pretty cool time. You met some great people. What was your most memorable learning during boot camp?
One of the technical pieces of technical things I learned about was how APIs work. I'm not going to go into detail about how they work, but before I went to Dev, I'd heard of APIs. I'd heard the team in my company talking about them, and I vaguely knew what they did, but they just seemed quite mysterious to me and quite, magic, kind of internet magic. And then when we had a week of the boot camp was kind of focused on them. And then after I had all the kind of foundational stuff built up over the first few weeks of boot camp, and then getting stuck into APIs in that week, that it all just sort of seemed, this is actually kind of straightforward once you put all those pieces together. And once I'd learned about APIs, it just sort of unlocked my whole understanding of the internet and totally changed my, I guess, view of how it all fits together. And I felt like a golden god of development briefly, until I realized how much more there is to learn. But it was really exciting to go, oh man.
Yeah.
That was a technical one.
Yeah. And what about a non-technical one?
We the human skills element was like a big chunk of it and a really important part for me, since I had a bit of technical background already. One of the things we learnt quite late on was we sort of worked on conflict management, because conflicts happen all the time in teams, especially when the pressure's on. And in our final group project, I was kind of like the project leader, and I had a bit of a conflict with a couple of my teammates because they were rightly, I guess, letting me know that I was probably being a bit too micromanaging. And we used some of that conflict resolution stuff, had a little session by ourselves and kind of stepped through everything, talked it out, and ended up all feeling way better about the situation. And it just went so well, just exactly how we kind of talked about it when we learned about conflict resolution. I was like, man, I feel great, even though I'm the bad guy here. And it was really cool. And everyone got to talk about it, and it was great.
No, that's wonderful. And that's how it should be, right? Like,
Mm.
You know, when there's a conflict, no one should be walking away hurt. People should be walking away empowered. So that's fantastic. What
There
a
was a
great
big focus on feedback and receiving feedback as well as giving feedback, and that was a great way for me to receive feedback, and it felt good.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Oh, that's great. Again, looking back, what was your biggest surprise about the bootcamp experience? Obviously, you've done a lot of research and you'd looked into this, you'd looked into other programs as well, but you would have had expectations at the start. What was something that really surprised you about the bootcamp experience?
I'd heard a lot about how intense the boot camp experience was, so I was kind of mentally prepared for it to consume my life, and it did. So I wasn't surprised so much by the intensity. I was ready for it. It was very intense. But something I didn't expect was how much I'd enjoy the group projects that are kind of dotted throughout the course. I'm just like a really proudly independent, I'll figure it out myself kind of guy. And I was a bit worried that I'd either be, I don't know, either falling behind my really smart teammates or maybe getting held back by my inexperienced teammates or something. I was going to get a bit grumpy about it, but I really enjoyed the group projects. When someone knows more than you can learn from them. And when you're a bit ahead of someone else, you can teach them. And either way, you learn heaps. And I just got a real kick out of doing that.
Yeah,
It was really cool.
oh, wonderful. We actually have an employer, Jeremy, who says whenever I'm hiring Dev Academy graduates, I know that I've got a teacher as well as a student coming on board, and that speaks to it. It's actually really hard to be both. It's really hard to be a mentor, and it's really hard to be a student. But if you've got the self-awareness and the skills, it makes everyone around you feel like it's easy. But yeah, cool. That's a cool story. And knowing what you know now, after completing the boot camp, if you were to go back in time and give yourself some advice, what would you say?
One of the I knew about myself that I need some downtime. I know this is going to be super intense, but I'm going to need some downtime. And to do that, I need to stay on top of things. So my number one tip would be to just try to stay on top of, the content. Like there's a lot, it's like a fire hose, a lot comes at you real quick. And each week kind of builds on the last week. So if you sort of, I was pretty lucky. I managed to keep kind of just ahead of the content. Like I'd get my assessments kind of ready and spend evenings making sure I understood the stuff from the day. And it meant that next week I was ready to absorb that chunk of information. I can imagine, and I saw a couple of cohort friends, if it started to snowball a bit, it gets really stressful. So I managed to keep ahead. And that was really, really valuable. I mean, I could have Sundays where I could just relax, and that was crucial for my kind of well-being. So that's tip number one, which is just try and keep ahead. And the best way to do that is tip number two, which is ask for help early and often. Like, I'm not much of an ask for helper. As I said, I'm really stubborn about doing stuff myself, but one of my big personal goals for the boot camp was to get better at asking for help. I know it's something I need to get better at. And I think I reached out earlier than I normally would, and every time I did, it was great. I usually it'll be David coming in to help me, and every single time I just felt, why didn't I do this even earlier? And it unblocks you really quick, and you end up learning faster and staying ahead. And yeah, ask for help early. That's tip number two. Goes hand in hand with tip number one.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Great advice, Jeremy. Well, you're a software developer now, and a year ago you weren't. How do you feel? If we're talking to folks that don't know whether they should make the career transition or become a software developer, what would you say to them?
I'm still a junior, and I still don't know what the future holds for me because my train me thing is fixed term and that's wrapping up very soon. So I don't know what I'm going to be doing soon, but I know I've made the right call. I know I'm in the, I guess, space that I want to be in. and all the problem solving that I do every day is exactly kind of what I signed up for. And the job experience at TradeMe has been so similar to how the Dev Academy system worked that it just felt like a natural step on. So I reckon if you feel like you like problem solving and you like the idea of using code to do something automatically instead of grinding away yourself, then it's an awesome field to be in.
Wonderful. Oh, well, thank you so much, Jeremy, for sharing those stories and answering my questions.
Sure.
I really, really appreciate it. And we can let you get back to your evening now. So if you want, you can tap out. If you want, you can stay. Totally up to you. I'm sure you want to have dinner or
In
something.
case someone has questions for
lovely.
Graham.
Lovely. Oh, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ryan.
Cool. And now we'll go over to the course overview. And I think, David, you're going to take over.
Yes. So just to explain a bit about how the course works. We have the full-time course, which is 17 weeks. That's the more intense altogether course that Jeremy completed. And then we've also got the part-time course, which is 46 weeks in total. And that's slightly more spread out, but still quite a full-on workload when it comes to courses that are offered at tertiary. So as Rose said, that will be a different hourly load compared to a regular part-time tertiary course that you might be familiar with. But you do get to stretch that learning out over a longer period of time, which could be useful for when you're working, say, part-time yourself and you want to also study with us, rather than in the full-time course where we would suggest that you would take some time off to do the full-time course full-time. And the great thing about the two different courses, they're the same curriculum between both of them. You get the same level of support from dedicated facilitators, and you have the same fees across both courses, regardless of which one you're doing. Full-time courses start in March and June, and then the part-time course has late starters in February and then July as well. So in terms of our offerings, I would say whichever one fits your schedule and your needs is going to be great for you. Obviously, I'm biased towards the full-time course. I feel like that's a great experience, but I do know that the part-time course is also awesome to participate in as well. If we could switch to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So to talk about the structure of the full-time course, that's where we will be learning most of the tech, and we split it up into 3 separate sections to cover all the content that you'll need to learn. So the first section on the left there in yellow is our foundations portion of the course. And we call it foundations because it gives you the foundational pieces that you'll need to jump into the boot camp in the middle portion of the course. So foundations goes for 6 weeks total with about 40 hours of work per week. And it is where you'll be building the skills in coding that you will need to jump into the boot camp. And in terms of foundation, how it's delivered, it's more of a self-directed portion of the course. So we'll give you some content to work over and some time to work on it. And we'll check in each week with you and see how you're going on those things. The bootcamp portion of the course is the 9 weeks most intense period of the course. And that's when you'll be with facilitators absolutely every day. You'll be with your other cohort students, mates in that course, and you will be basically learning from the facilitators from lectures and then going out and working on challenges each day. So 60 to 70 hour per week weeks for that portion of the course, which includes 40 hours during the weekday daytime and an extra 20 to 30 hours of your own study on top of that. Now that is intense and it is a lot of content, but the great news is in 9 weeks, you can go from a very small amount of knowledge of coding to being at a stage where you understand how to build full stack websites, which is really what employers are looking for from a tech perspective. At the end of the bootcamp, we have another module called Careers, which is 2 weeks, which focuses on getting job ready and also brushing up your CV and your application skills, interviewing skills as well, so that you'll be ready to apply for jobs and jump into the industry after that. And Ro will talk a lot more about the careers portion of the course afterwards. So if we jump to the next slide, we'll dive into a little bit more detail on each of these. Cool. So to go over the foundations specifically, some of these icons you may have seen before. Some of these icons might be completely different. This foundations course is all about preparing you for the bootcamp. And so we teach you the basics of working with websites. On the left there, you can see HTML, and HTML is the kind of structure of a web page that you'll see on the internet. We'll teach you how to write that and how to build your own web pages. CSS, the blue one in the middle there, is the styling for web pages. That's all of the different graphics that you'll see on the page, how they're oriented on the page, and it really allows you to bring a polish to the website. And JS over there stands for JavaScript. That is something that runs in your browser. It's the actual coding in the background of your website. And that allows you to get the beginnings of interactive websites. So all three together within the Foundations course will get you to build some nice things, like maybe a tic-tac-toe game is one of your assessments that you'll be completing, and quite fun along the way as well. Throughout the Foundations course, we'll be doing a blog, and you'll also be working with Git and GitHub as well. In phase one of the bootcamp, which we split up into 3 separate phases, we'll be focusing on what we call the client side. So the course as a whole teaches you about the full stack, which is developing a website which involves things that the clients will see and also things that will happen in the background of the website. So when we jump into phase one of the bootcamp, we're focusing on the client side, and that's all the things that you can see, the bells and whistles that you notice on any modern website. And we use a modern tech stack for our course. TypeScript is the language that we'll be coding in, and that's an extension of JavaScript that you learn in Foundations. We'll learn how to build apps with React as well, and modern websites tend to use React as a way to provide fast updates. Facebook, the website itself, the creators of Facebook, the engineers from Facebook, made React in the first place. So it's the tool that allows Facebook to be what it is. And if you want to do a test for yourself, if you jump onto any website and click a link on the website, if it does an old school loading spinner at the top of your web page, it's probably using an old school website. If it doesn't have any kind of loading spinner at the top of the website and instead just shows you the content when it's ready, it's probably a React-based website or something similar, for example, Angular, like Jeremy has learned. We'll be focusing on unit testing in the course and also what's known as test-driven development. And these are skills that are useful once you get out into industry. You might be involved in some testing at those jobs. And as Jeremy said, we'll be looking at REST APIs and how to retrieve and publish data to the internet or our own servers along the way. So all of these skills together are going to really flesh out the client side of things for the first 3 weeks of bootcamp. Into phase two, the middle 3 weeks of bootcamp, we'll be focusing on what we call the server side, or the things that the user can't necessarily see. So the main things we'll cover within the server side are JavaScript and Express, setting up your own server. We'll look into database operations with SQLite, and we'll deal with authentication with Auth0. So on this server side of things, we'll be dealing with the inner workings in the background, like loading a whole bunch of data, giving it back to the user when they request it, and building out larger and larger databases, more and more complex functions on that side. And those two parts together are going to form the full stack that we talk about in the course and also in industry. The most fun phase of the bootcamp, I like to think, is phase 3. And at that point, you have pretty much learned all you need to know in terms of new tech content, and you get a chance to work with your groups throughout the entire 3 weeks of this phase to solidify your learning. You'll be working on projects that span multiple days during that time. And you'll also have what we like to think of as the kind of capstone to the bootcamp. It's your final group projects. Normally a 7-day project that you'll be working on with a set group of people from your cohort, and you get to build really, really cool things, as I'm sure Jeremy could tell you about. You choose the topic yourself, you take the knowledge that you have from the course, and you get to build a final project that maybe you want to show off to employers down the line as a portfolio piece. Definitely something that we recommend. We celebrate these final projects in a showcase evening at the end of bootcamp, which we invite your family and friends to, and we get to share all of your learning throughout the journey of bootcamp and really celebrate what you've been able to build and where you're about to jump off into job searching and the industry at large after that. So just to kind of zoom in on a single day for bootcamp and see what that will feel like for you, or look like, at least in terms of schedule. A day in the life of bootcamp, I can tell you, doesn't change too much. We're doing a bootcamp right now, and we did exactly these things today. In the morning, you'll probably start in with a check-in of some kind with your peers, and then we'll jump into a mindfulness session where we try and practice mindfulness to get advantages that it can give us in terms of recognizing different things that come up for us, or at least just getting some relaxation before the day starts. Normally you'll have a lecture or a human skills deep dive. That's our human skills side of things for the lectures. And then based on the lecture, you'll be jumping into some pair programming to practice the concept that you've been taught in the lecture. After that, we'll hit lunch, and in the in-person campus, you might be doing some yoga or well-being time if you're online, and that will lead you into the afternoon. Afternoon lecture is some new content, maybe a build on the morning content. Then again, you're into pair programming or perhaps some testing practice. On Thursdays and Fridays, you'll be working on group projects in the afternoon as well. And at the end of the day, we all check out together wherever you are. We'll have a question to connect to everyone, and we do a famed final clap with everyone as well. And it gets quite fun along the way. So throughout these days, you get to really know your facilitators and you get to really know your cohort mates. And you'll find by the end of the course that it is something that you really don't want to leave. At least I believe so. And I might pass it over to Rohan, if that's okay for the human skills portion.
Sure. So the human skills side of it, Jeremy talked a little bit about, and I did as well. This is really interwoven into the whole program. The reason we do this is you can't really be a software developer without being a human as well. It's incredibly team orientated. Everything we do in our program is with other people, and those skills that we really deep dive into are incredibly important to be able to get the most out of those pairing relationships and the group work. So we take deep dives into things like listening and empathy, oranga or well-being, giving and receiving feedback, self-compassion, courageous conversations, diversity and inclusion. These are some of the things that we dive into. And all of them really, each week, you'll have a look at those things and you'll be putting them into practice each week as you grow these skills. Also, as we're doing these group projects, you'll bring, obviously you'll be growing these things and aspects of them, but we ask you to practice them as well. Like we're really interested in you treating our program as a safe place to be able to practice these things. The thing is when you're out in the real world, we've got our facades up and we've got our protection mechanisms up. We're thinking about, rocking the boat am I going to get paid? Am I going to get fired? These sorts of things. But in our environment, it's not like that. In our environment, we're looking at learning and growing in a safe place. So what you'll find, and I hope for those of you that do take the plunge, I hope you experience this amazing environment in which you can be yourself and put these things to the test and really grow in your human skills side of things. I think it's a truly liberating experience. We have one-on-one check-ins as well, which is a big part of making sure that your well-being is really sort of well supported. And that would look like a check-in with one of our human skills teachers, and that usually happens every second week. If you're having a tough time, that can be pretty much every second day. So again, that support is there if you need it. And likewise, if you're feeling fine, it might be just a quick, hey, I'm feeling fine, and carry on. Have the next slide, Fleur. So other aspects of the human skills and practice, you'll notice that when you get out into the tech sector, there is a lot of process around the agile framework and working in an agile way. And agile is a set of tools and principles that allow you to build software. In fact, build many things, build anything really, but particularly it's used in software in a way that meets the objective in a really efficient and effective way. And a big part of this is an accountability group or a morning check-in. It's where you're checking in with the rest of the people in your group or in your team, and in this case, in your cohort. And you're checking in on things like, how did yesterday go? How's today feeling? What are your energy levels like? Are you feeling good about your learning? These sorts of things. So it's really having a professional friendship, I guess, and making sure that you're feeling supported and heard, but also that you're taking care of those that are around you. Again, it builds up this connection of bringing your human side to a professional environment. We have opening and closing circles again, which set the opening would set the topic and set the mood and the plan for the day, and the closing circle really closes that off and offers a bit of a time to reflect. We do strongly encourage folks do things like a daily reflection so that you can plan your learning into the evenings and the weekends and so on. I think that's one of the most valuable things that you can do. I've talked a little bit about pair programming. I was talking to an employer on Friday last week about pair programming, and he was telling me how in his organization, they actually find it really difficult to do because people don't have the skills to be able to do it. And he always says the fact that Dev Academy focuses on this, he really, really values it. And he's actually had a Dev Academy graduate train some of his seniors on how to pair program well, because it is a tough skill to do well. And this is where you've got two software developers on one screen, one keyboard, working on four pairs of eyes, but on one set of code. And it's a really effective way of producing great software with a lot less errors. It's also a great way of learning as well. We do a lot of group projects, and Jeremy mentioned there's projects peppered throughout the program. We're looking at developing those human skills in those projects. You'll present them all as well, so you'll be speaking to them. There'll be a lot of opportunities to talk to the group and present your information and your work. Again, growing those skills in communication. There's also lightning talks, which is where you, again, this is a part of Agile, where you might, what they call spike on something. When you're looking at a spike, you're hitting a crossroad and you need to investigate ways forward. There might be 10 ways forward and there's 10 people, so you'll spike on a different topic, and this is where you'll delve deeply. You'll research a topic in a way forward or a feature or a piece of technology, and then you present it back to the team advocating for its use in the project. We do this in a slightly more learning capacity. It's the same principle, but you'd research a topic that we don't teach and you'd present that back to the team as if you were doing a spike in an agile process. And we do yoga during our course as well. Again, it's something that you can do in an office. So we do this. We really encourage you to get outside and do some fitness and move your body as well, because often we're up in our heads and our bodies are needed to really keep us healthy. But yoga is something that we can do in an office without setting the fire alarms off, and it's practical in that way. Next slide, Fleur. Awesome. So this is my bit. Look at that handsome man there. That is me. I teach the career skills side of things at the moment. And this is a really important part to the program because being a software developer is wonderful. It's a great thing. We know how to do that. It really works. You go through the motion, you do the program, you will be a software developer and a very good one. Job hunting, though, and getting a job is a different beast. It's got nothing to do with software development and nothing to do with whether you're a good one or a bad one. It's got to do with job hunting. And again, we take 2 weeks to really deep dive into this. And look, I think the stuff that we teach is absolutely world-class. It's quite unique, and it's a different way than you'll probably be job hunting or that you have job hunted in the past. It's got very little to do with applying for jobs and much more to do with about creating opportunities and networking. And I don't mean networking in that walking into a crowd and handing out business cards type way. It's much more of a covert and effective type way of networking. But we go and look at the tech market and what it's looking like at the moment. We talk about this formula, and we've got a real formula on being able to land the right role for you. We talk about career planning and progression, creating a professional online presence, CVs and cover letters. Those are all the assets. Those are all the things that you need to do. And then we talk about, how would you network? How would you, approach a company? How would you, go into a meetup and be able to create an opportunity out of that? That is where we build opportunities, okay? And the last one is the interviewing skills. That's really the being able to perform in that high pressure, intensive environment that usually only lasts an hour or 2 hours if you've got a couple of interviews, plus maybe a technical test. And all of that process is incredibly crucial. And often it's taken for granted that you know how to do that. What we know is that we make amazing software developers, and we also know that getting a job in any discipline, particularly, when you're new to it, can be hard. So we really take this and take our responsibility. By the way, our career skills last for 2 weeks, but it's a lifelong membership. So if you want to find a job and you're struggling to find a job, you can use us at any time in your career to be able to do that. In fact, we won't stop supporting you until you've found the job that you want. And that's our commitment to any Dev Academy graduate. And I meet quite regularly with quite a number of students to take them through those processes. And we do one-on-ones every week to review their activity, to make sure that they're getting good feedback on their interviewing processes and so on. And the students that use me are the ones that get the jobs the fastest as well. So yeah, that's a big part of my job. Can we go to the next slide, Philip? Excuse me. We also have a number of industry speakers come in and talk to you as graduates about what the sector looks like. We also have, and they're really talking to you about what goes on behind the sort of the closed doors and those mystery sort of environments, how companies would select, how they evaluate, what do technical tests look like, these sorts of things. And that really demystifies the process as well. So it gives you a lot of confidence on the process and what you're getting yourself into. We also have former graduates talking about their experiences with job hunting in the industry. Maybe they're talking to you a little bit about, what the process was like, what the pitfalls were. Now they're in the job, what they wish they would have done, these sorts of things. And it's a great opportunity for you to be able to ask questions in a safe space as well. It's it's a really valuable part of the experience. Can we go to the next slide? Oh yeah, cool. So this is bringing us a little bit close to the end. So I'd like to talk about a few things here: requirements, application process, the commitment, the success rate, and just sort of making sure this course is for you. Can we go to the next slide, Fleur? Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is what we require before you come into the program. So you don't need a study prerequisite. You don't need to have done NCEA to a certain level. In fact, we can take anyone onto this program. What we are looking for is, are you going to be successful? And the success measures are very simple. are you committed, and do you have a passion to do this? Because I think everyone's talked, David and Jeremy, myself have talked about the intensity, the hours, and the dedication that you have to have. It's a hard program. I'd say it's the hardest program in New Zealand in this type of sort of study. It's long hours. There's a huge amount of information. And if you're used to getting A's and used to finding education easy, you'll find this hard no matter what. It is tough. So you've got to be prepared for that. The other thing is that, have you got a clear plate? Can you spend the time? David mentioned 60 to 70 hours. That's not a joke. Like, you don't get away with doing less than 60. And if you're putting in 70, you're going to feel better. And we even have students putting in up to 80. So it's what you put in is what you get out, and you're really going to feel that. So if you don't have a clear plate, then that's going to be something that we'll talk to you about. We might recommend at that point that you do the part-time program if you can't spend that sort of hours per week. And in fact, that's why we've got the part-time program for those folks that have got young ones that they can't have someone else look after, or maybe someone they're taking care of, or maybe you've just got to work quite a bit whilst you study. Fair enough, I get it. And that's what that part-time program is for. Now, the fees are $12,497. It's one of the more expensive programs, and that cost really comes into the fact that we put a lot more teachers on the program per student. We have smaller cohorts, and we have lots of teachers to be able to support you through that. As an organisation, we don't make tons of money. In fact, we're really interested in making sure that this is an exceptional experience and that we really serve our students. Myself as a founder and my co-founder, we're actually quite interested in the social impact side of it. And the pathway for Dev Academy long term is to become a charity. It's not about making mega bucks and buying bigger houses. It's much more about how do we create a positive impact in this country and really achieve amazing outcomes for our students. So look, the fee is high, but it's because what we're doing is really intense and it's an expensive program to deliver. The good thing is all fees can be covered by student loans, and you can talk to us about that. But StudyLink will be able to cover your fees if you're eligible for StudyLink. Also, if you're a first-time learner, you may be eligible for fees-free. Again, if you don't know if you're eligible for fees-free, just talk to us because we can tell you the process of how to do that. Simple thing is you jump on StudyLink and sort of enter in your details and go forward like that. But yeah, as I say, we can help you with any of that sort of stuff. Cool. Well, I'd like to hand it back to our audience. Does anyone have any questions for me? Oh, so I've just had someone DM me a question here. What's the market looking like at the moment? I've known that the tech sector has had a bit of a lull lately. What is your prediction on it this right now? What cities? Okay. Oh, and also is there remote work? Okay, cool. So there's quite a bit of information on that one. So, yep, you're right. The sector has been struggling, as I think a lot of New Zealand has at the moment. Being in a recession post-COVID with the restrictions that are in place in spending at the moment, and interest rates and so on, New Zealand's had a pretty hard time, and the tech sector hasn't been immune from that. We've actually had quite a bit of a hiring freeze during 2023 and 24. We're only just starting to see some of those companies changing those policies now. It's great to see TradeMe, doing an internship program. That's awesome. I understand that they'd halted that for a bit. It's wonderful to see, particularly our financial sector, doing a lot more activity at the moment. So, we're seeing a lot of our banks and our insurance companies are starting to grow teams again, which they hadn't been doing for the last couple of years. They are, I suppose, some of the first movers. I don't think banks lost a lot of money over the last 2 years, as a lot of the other sectors did. Banks don't tend to lose money. They tend to make money whether it's a recession or not. So they are continuing to grow. But we're also starting to see some of the smaller startups and some of your other tech companies starting to hire again, which is a really, really good sign. And I haven't seen that over the last couple of years so much. But I'm seeing more grads getting interviews and having a variety of opportunities. Whereas last year and the year before, it may have only been one or two. That was much harder. So the market, I believe, is slowly getting better. The other thing I look at is business confidence, and that is going. It's up and down, but it's been a bit more up than it has been, and I think that's a good sign as well. Obviously, with the disruptions overseas, we don't know how the Trump presidency is going to affect us, but that's something that we're obviously there's quite a lot of unknowns there. So my prognosis is, look, I think all sectors are struggling at the moment. I think New Zealand's in a recession. I think tech is a major exporter. That's going to be our biggest soon. And I think we've got an opportunity in this country to make it even bigger than it really is right now. And I think that towards the end of this year in particular, we'll see some good increases. Don, did you have a question there?
Yeah, I did. Rohan, hi. How are you? Evening. Hey, look, I'm in the business myself. My son's online as well. He's primarily interested in doing the course, but I've been in the business for about 35 years or so here and abroad. You were mentioning it's a level 6 qualification. I mean, how's that getting benchmarked? I mean, obviously there's a big emphasis on practical capability and obviously coding skills. So most firms will do a test, but how's that being benchmarked, I guess?
Against other programs? Yeah, good question.
Yeah, against other programs. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, there's a number of ways to answer that. Firstly, I mean, when we were starting our program, we approached universities and said, hey, would you consider making the course more practical? The university's reply was, we have no interest in making it more practical. We don't serve the tech sector. We actually serve research, and that's our main goal. So, and then we went back to industry and said, well, what do you like about the university side of it? And what needs to be improved? What could we do that would supplement? Pretty much anyone that was in tech had been through university. And their answer was, well, I only used about 5 to 10% of my university program in the real world. So basically, I'd throw 90% of it out and I'd focus on the human side of it and actually teaching people how to learn and problem solve and do that with other people. But also, if you're going to learn a technology, make sure it's a technology that is transferable. So use browser-based technologies and JavaScript obviously came up into that. So when folks go out and to do the technical testing side of it, 95% of the time, 85% of the time it's, hey, walk me through a piece of code that you're proud of, or hey, jump into our code base and have a play and let's see you interact with it. And Dev Academy graduates absolutely flourish in those environments. Great communication skills. They're able to interpret things and take people through, and that side of it works really well. 15% of the time they get told to, can you on a whiteboard draw up for me, this schema with this amount of this and that and so on. And we don't do any of that. We just don't do the theory side of it. And I actually, in fact, in those situations, I train our graduates to say something like, hey, I don't code often on a whiteboard. Can I do some coding in the terminal, or can I show you some of my code and so on? Rather than test me on my algorithmic experience, I don't have any. Can you test me on my ability to actually build? And usually that goes down well. Sometimes people are a little bit more staunch and they'll say no. And it really depends just on the attitude of the employer. Now, so in summary, the level 6 has got not a lot to do with it. It's much more about those practical skills that we learn. And also bear in mind, Don, everything you do becomes a portfolio. So employers are looking at that. And what they're thinking is, wow, 12, 14 weeks ago, you were really bad at coding. And now look at you, you're actually really good. I think if you could do that in our organization, that's worth the investment. And that's the biggest factor. That would be the biggest clincher for an employer. They often say, what I need to do is I need to look at the code, look, and then just meet them in person and think, well, can I see this person doing that sort of work in my environment?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that resonates with me. I think one of the reasons we're looking at this course is because it looked very practically orientated, based on what I know about the industry and where I'd be looking for a person to hire as well. So it looked like it ticked all the right buttons in terms of the technologies you've covered off. I guess the other question I had is that the courses. I think you're based in Wellington, right? But you've got an office in Newmarket.
That's right.
Okay. Yeah. Is it available in both locations, both in March and June?
Yeah, so what we do is we actually have a kind of a hybrid way of working. So, and it does change depending on student numbers as well. So generally we get twice the number of students wanting to study in person in Auckland than we do in Wellington. So what we do is we generally say, well, if there's enough people, we'll run a cohort in person in Wellington. And if there's not, we'll make it hybrid. So you can come in whenever you want. And you can work from home whenever you want. So to give you an example, last year we had 4 cohorts in total. 2 of them in Wellington were pretty much in person, where folks came in every time the teacher was there. They taught like that. Sorry, it's giving me the internet connection is unstable. Can you hear me okay, Don?
I can hear you fine, yep.
Okay, great. And the other half of the time, students came in, actually, they ended up coming in on a Monday, a Thursday and a Friday, and they had Tuesday and Wednesday at home. And that was an agreement that they made together, and that suited them. Look, we are flexible, but if folks want to come in, we've got an office in Wellington. We've got an office in Newmarket. Most people prefer to have that flexibility to be able to go remote, and we totally respect that, and that's absolutely fine. David talked a little bit about that online experience. It's a really personal experience. It's not like you're online every now and then. You're online all the time. Like you're in Discord, you're with your team. It's a very immersive experience. And the learning is relentless as well. So it's very, very full on for that online learning too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. There is a question here at the end of the last one I talked a little bit about around the international market, and is the course able to be recognized overseas? So we have a lot of people finding work, particularly now in Australia and overseas. If they can work in the States, great, and other places. The fact is the course is recognized as an NZQA approved program, and it's at level 6, so it's recognized formally in that way. But I mentioned that portfolio. That's generally where a software developer that's in the field is going to go to immediately. They're really going to go and have a look at the quality of that portfolio, the rate of learning, and I think what they're looking at is, what am I going to expect if I hire this person? And they're actually looking through that code. So that's going to be one of your biggest assets coming through our program, whether you're working locally or internationally. The other part of that question is, can you find work internationally and do that remotely? Now, this is becoming more and more common. In fact, myself and Joshua, my co-founder, in 2014-15, we actually started a consultancy with some of our graduates picking up work in Europe in particular. And that went really, really well. And they're still going, actually, that group of graduates. And they've developed their own business and so on. Joshua and myself aren't part of it. But it's really cool to see that keep going. That sort of work is really, really effective. But it's hard to start on day one graduating from Dev Academy. You really need to have some seniors around. What's becoming more popular, though, is actually getting a job, not a consulting or contracting job so much, but getting a junior developer role with an international team, actually onboarding remotely. And we're seeing that a lot, particularly at an intermediate and senior level, but I'm also seeing it at a graduate level as well now. And that is because the war on talent, like the need for good people, is really rife. And some of those pays, that you're getting in those overseas companies are substantially more than you'd see in New Zealand. So yes, there are opportunities there, but I would say there's more opportunities for someone that has 1 to 2 years experience than straight out of somewhere like Dev Academy.
Actually, I just had another question as well in terms of like the last 2 weeks and actually finding a role. I mean, you've got relationships with some organisations, but you ran through usual sorts of things you're involved in finding a role in terms of networking, so on and so forth. But what's the sort of realistic success rate for junior? For someone straight out of the academy and into a kind of junior role, are there quite a lot of firms taking on juniors at the moment, or are they really still looking for someone with mostly people with experience?
I mean, a company's always looking for someone with experience.
Yeah.
I think that's what they in any sort of market, even now where there's a bit of a lull, or been a bit of a lull in the market. A good intermediate and good seniors always been able to get work. But things are still difficult, but they're definitely improving. I would say that in comparison, I'd just say during COVID, people were getting work very, very quickly. Within weeks of graduating, they were really getting work. It's definitely taking longer now. Those folks that really follow our principles, though, are getting work the fastest, and that comes down to, not applying to those jobs that are advertised, but actually seeking your own opportunities that are exclusive opportunities that no one else is applying for. These sorts of things. And again, I mean, this is what I teach, and it's really taking that job hunt on as a role in itself, like doing that for 15, 20 hours a week, and the other 15, 20 hours coding, keeping your coding up. It's full on, and it's tough. And again, as I said, Don, like those folks that use me, those graduates that use me, I'm there for half an hour a week with them one-on-one, taking them through and reflecting on who they're applying for and so on. I've got one student at the moment that's applying for 5 companies a week in Australia, and also, looking at any opportunities in New Zealand as well. And he's been doing that now for a month. And each week there's another bit of investment. There's another, referral on to another person. There's opportunity after opportunity that's creating. He still hasn't got that work, and he's working damn hard at it. But it's going to eventuate in something with the interviews that he's getting and the conversations that he's having. It will come soon.
Yeah, that resonates with the experience I'm having. I mean, it's definitely a buyer's market there at the moment. I'm inundated with CVs for my program, but that's useful too. I mean, it's out there if you're prepared to look hard enough, I guess. Yep.
I think so. I've been doing this for 11 years now, and I've seen our graduates apply for 200 jobs that have been advertised, and they'll say, I got nothing back. And that's not expected. That's expected. I would expect very little response from job ads. But the moment I sit down with that candidate and say, look, let's not apply for jobs, let's actually do what I taught you to do, the results start to happen. And I can't say that enough. I think I'm pretty good at job hunting, and it's hard, but it's effective if you follow the process. Lovely to see you, Jeremy. Thank you very much for being here, mate. Now I did see another question here. Hold on a minute. Oh yeah. Cool. So there's a question here just around the programs and cost. Dev Academy is certainly more expensive. And why don't you do internships? Okay, so that's a good question. Why don't we do internships? Well, the answer is we used to. We used to do internships. And in fact, we did them for just a cohort. back in 2014, I think so. Yeah, 2014, I think it was. And what happened is our student effort rocketed down because we guaranteed a job at the end of it. And we had, I suppose, 50% of our students really, they just didn't cut the mustard, and that was unusual. It's the first time we'd seen that in a cohort. Usually everyone was a very, very high standard. And also employers took that for granted too, and they didn't put the effort into mentoring and bringing these people on, and it didn't work. And a number of employers came back to us saying, hey, we didn't think the quality was as good this time. We don't want to do that again. So what we say is, and we work with over 300 employers. What we say is, well, look, we are going to make the best software developers that you can find in the sector. What we require is for you to give them the time of day. If they're applying for your jobs, then you're reading their CVs. Even if you're not hiring, you're at least giving them advice. You're at least having a coffee with them and these sorts of things. And we've found that to be by far the most effective. Okay. So our employment rate is around 85%. I must admit at the moment is definitely taking people longer to find work. And I hope that decreases now as the market starts to pick up. But I believe that internships mean that we as a school become lazy, and I don't want that. And I also don't want our students to think that they've got a cushy ride because they've got a guaranteed job at the end of it. This is a hard program, and I want people to put in all of the effort that they've got to make sure that they get the best results they can so that employers are really happy at the end of it.
Ryan, you were talking about up to 70 hours a week. Obviously, that's 10 hours a day. So would you guys kind of, you kick off kind of 8-ish in the morning, do you, 8:30 type thing, and then go right through to 6?
We kick off formally at 9 and end at 5. But our campus is open 24 hours. So some people are coming in before that. Some people are staying quite a bit afterwards. In fact, most people are staying quite a bit afterwards. People will also knock off at maybe 5:30. They'll go home and have some dinner and then jump into the online platform and start jamming with each other online. So, and also weekends as well are great times to be able to jam with friends, etc. So we require people to be there from 9 till 5 days a week. Outside of that, we request, well, we don't request, we expect people to be doing at least 20 hours outside of that, but I'd say that most people do 30 plus. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And someone actually asked me that on a DM as well, so I hope that answers the question okay. If not, just clarify that on the DM as well. That's the end of the question. I think I've looked through the other 10 questions, 11 questions here that people asked before they came into the call. I think I've answered them all. Yeah. Has anyone got any final questions? Okay. Well, if you do, please get in touch with us. We have there's a number of ways in which you can do that. Just jump online and you can book a call with us. It's pretty easy. You just jump on our website and you can click the apply button if you're ready to study with us. If anyone wants my email or phone number, I'm going to chuck it in the chat now. And yeah, you're most welcome to contact me. But my is me. And you're most welcome to contact me with any specific questions you've got. But other than that, maybe we call it a day. And yeah, look forward to seeing some of you on the program, I hope. Helena, did you want to finish off with something?
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that we will send out a recording of this as well so that you can rewatch it if you like.
Yeah, cool. And we still have places in our March full-time program. That is coming up at the end of this month, and applications will close quite soon. So get in there if you want that. And Fleur, are we still accepting late entrants into our part-time program? Is that still happening now, or is that closed now?
Yes.
Okay.
For people who have maybe a bit of coding experience already, we're accepting late entries into our Feb program, which is part-time, or the next part-time starts in July.
Yeah, wonderful. Cool.
Guys, was the March program kickoff?
It's towards the end. Let me just get you the exact date.
I think it's the 24th.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Or maybe that's the close date. But yeah, I mean, the full-time program really does need, obviously, you to start on time. So if you're interested in that March program, I'd be talking to us this week if you can. Yeah.
Cool.
Lovely.
Lovely.
Okay, folks, we'll call this a close. I really appreciate everyone's questions and the attendance. Yeah, great questions. Thanks, Don, for your questions in particular. Made it really good discussion. Really appreciate your time, David. Thank you so much, and Fleur as well.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, just one final thing. Applications close 20th of March, and then the program starts on the 24th.
Yeah, cool.
Cool.
Wonderful.
Thanks, team.
Right. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks very much.